Hello, my name is Rose Riley, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Washtenaw County. Welcome to our online candidate forum for the November 8th general election. The League is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that promotes voter education and participation, and we host candidate forums to help voters make informed choices. Now, let's hear from the candidates.
My name is Carolyn Madden, and I will moderate the forum tonight. It's my honor to introduce the two candidates running in the November general election for Washtenaw County Board of Commissioners, District 4, Democrat Caroline Sanders and Republican Robert Zimmerman. Thank you both for participating in this forum. We're now ready for opening statements. Ms. Sanders? Yeah, you're muted.
You need to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we
Yes.
can.
Okay. I am Caroline Sanders. I am running for re-election to District 4, Washtenaw County Commissioners. I have been what I consider to be a public servant for more than half of my life, so about 40 years now. And I decided to run after I sort of took heed to a call from Gretchen Whitmore for more women, and specifically women of color, to run for public office. And my experience with being on multiple boards and being a constant advocate in and for the community led me to this place. There is good work still to be done, and I'm sure I'll have an opportunity to share that with you as we move forward. So I am running again for re-election and looking forward to it.
Okay, Mr. Zimmerman, please, your opening statement. Are you muted?
Good evening. I'm Rob Zimmerman, a candidate for County Commissioner District 4. Thanks to the League of Women Voters for their invitation to be a part of this forum. I welcome the opportunity to introduce myself. Why my wife, Melissa, and I are 30-year residents of Washtenaw County and consider ourselves very committed to our community. I'm a CPA and have worked in financial leadership roles for almost 35 years. One of my first responsibilities upon employment at a nearby automotive supplier was to help select a new manufacturing site. I enthusiastically recommended Pittsfield Township for its high caliber workforce, vibrant economy, and excellent public education. We were able to get 200 well-paying industrial jobs in Washtenaw rather than somewhere else. We have proudly raised our children here, built homes and businesses, and actually served in community endeavors and nonprofit groups. Yet the past 2 years have been so challenging for all of us. I'm a candidate because I believe we as a county can do so much better. Serving as your commissioner would be a privilege in the best way I know how to use my skills, experience, and passion to give back to the area we love. Thank you.
Thank you. And now for our first question, Mr. Zimmerman. It's on the use of federal funds. Washtenaw County will receive more than $70 million in federal American Rescue Plan funds. In July, the University of Michigan's Poverty Solutions Center evaluated Washtenaw County's use of these funds. The U of M report recommended that the county prioritize adequate one-time investments in a limited number of initiatives, rather than spreading funding too thinly among multiple programs. The report also recommended a focus on achieving specific measurable goals. Is the county spending ARPA money as recommended by the U of M report?
I can't speak to the details of what's specifically being spent. I absolutely agree with the concept that this is meant to be a recovery plan, not a relief plan. The purpose of the recovery plan is to move us forward, to get us through the one-time issues so that we can truly put the funds the way that into place the way the taxpayers have intended. Certainly, we want to be measurable in everything that we do, because truly, we are not a community of one. We're a community of many counties, townships, cities, et cetera, and best practices need to be monitored to and see exactly what we're doing. We need to compare ourselves with other organizations, and we just can't have the mentality of it just because it wasn't invented here, that doesn't mean it's not any good. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Sanders, same question.
So there are a number of issues that have not been addressed here in Washtenaw County that rose up to the top during COVID. The $72 million that was provided to Washtenaw County was meant to help relieve a lot of those issues that were brought to the forefront. There are areas in this county, including the eastern side of this county and the more rural side of this county, that have not gotten equitable resources over the decades. And this money has allowed us to be able to address some of those concerns. I agree. So I'm not going to address the Poverty Solutions Report per se. And I've got reasons for that. But what I will say is that we as county commissioners have worked, I think, very well for the most part, and been in agreement and put operational processes in place that will level the playing field for how agencies and services that are needed in our community are addressed and funded to try and right side the equity issues that we have. And that includes having many of these requests be filtered through the Racial Equity Office, to use data and not to use sort of who you know processes for funding resources in this county. So I believe that we are doing the best that we can with the money that we have, and we're being very thoughtful about how we spend that money on the behalf of all of the Washtenaw County residents.
Thank you. Second question will begin with Ms. Sanders. It's on safe drinking water. 2 chemical spills, PFAS and Chrome 6, have endangered drinking water in the county. What steps should the Board of Commissioners take to ensure safe drinking water for county residents?
So if I can help it, we're not going to experience what our neighbors in Flint have experienced. What we should be doing is looking at strengthening the requirements and the penalties for companies that have the ability and the propensity to dump in our waters and our streamways. There are things that I can't share with you because we are in litigation in relationship to one of those dumping situations. But I will say to you that I, coming on board as a county commissioner, insisted and asked that we utilize all of the resources that include our lobbying firm and our elected officials in the state and the federal houses, to bring whatever power to bear that we can to make sure that any harm that may be or has been done to our residents is rectified, and that we're not looking at this as a ongoing issue on behalf of our residents.
Mr. Zimmerman, same question.
The most important thing to do when you have a problem is to contain the damage. And certainly Ms. Sanders brings up the Flint situation. Our oldest daughter lives in Flint, so we certainly have experience from her in terms of just what a mess it was in terms of everybody's daily living activities, and just what the burden that community had to bear, in many ways, perhaps unnecessarily. The way that's contained, we have significant resources at the state level that we may not need to replicate at the state level should we have continuing issues here. But again, we need to physically assess and contain the damage to what's gone on to our environment, and fines and penalties don't necessarily have everything to do with what can be the appropriate fix. The way that we can handle this is just get everybody resources put together to make certain that our water is safe. It has to be safe, and water and dumping is just, there is no way to make it a valuable, no way to keep it to being a valuable resources to all of us if it is polluted. It is very invasive. We don't know what's in there, and we have to find out.
Okay, thank you both. The next question will begin with you, Mr. Zimmerman, on election fairness. Do you believe that Washtenaw County operates free and fair elections? What additional steps, if any, should be taken to secure election processes and ensure public confidence in elections?
There's a number of different things that a number of different folks are proposing that would help our elections truly prove that they are on the up and up. My personal experience from my observations and as working as a poll worker in multiple townships and in the city of Ann Arbor as well, have not led me to indicate there's any specific areas of fraud that I can identify. Certainly, there's all sorts of things that can be done to truly audit the process, to give everybody the confidence that they need moving forward, to know that their ballot is truly respected and that only the ballots of legal voters are being considered. It'd be nice to have voter ID. It's not a hill to die on, but certainly everybody has an ID that can be presented or can present an alternative that is acceptable. Other things in terms of auditing the counts and also auditing the software that's provided by Dominion can't be just something that's a closed loop. ERIC is certainly a challenging system to address because people will register a boat, a ski-doo, or in their home and get asked to register to vote. It's also challenging when that person is not a legal citizen and is here on a green card. I've heard in my canvassing a number of folks say that they're not registered to vote, but they're on the system. Thank you so much, and we'll defer the balance of my time.
Okay, Ms. Sanders?
So as a voter here in Washtenaw County for, I don't know, at least the last 33 years, I have never experienced any sort of voter suppression. I've not been made aware of any issues related to people feeling that they have not been allowed or had access to fair voting. Visiting various polls, either during my election or assisting with other people's elections, I haven't seen any violations myself. And I have found the few clerks that I have interacted with in Pittsfield Township, in the city of Ypsilanti, Ypsilanti Township, I find them to be very open and willing to execute their jobs. So I believe that we are fortunate here in Washtenaw County, unlike some other counties here in Michigan, where we've not really had to grapple with that particular issue. And it is my expectation that we will continue not to have to grapple with it. I do think that we should make sure that there is, again, equity, and that we have faith in those people that are responsible for auditing our elections.
Okay, thank you. Question number 4 will begin with you, Ms. Sanders. After effects of COVID-19. The COVID pandemic disproportionately affected Washtenaw County's least privileged citizens, especially those living in zip codes 48197 and 48198. Are there additional steps the county should take to address the effects of COVID on these residents?
Having been involved in that process and with the concerns in 48197 and 48198, I can say confidently that our Department of Health has recognized the issues that needed attention. I believe that they have given those issues the attention necessary and corrected any problems that we were having. I know for a fact that we have improved our relationships with the faith-based organizations and other community agencies to make sure that we don't ever have this experience again, and also to try and correct it as we saw it happening. But I live in 48197, 48198, and I am staunchly supportive of them, and I make no apologies for that. But I do also want to lift up our more rural residents that live in the western part of this county. They had the same issues, and many of them had less access to medical services than we had here as sort of the county center. But I'm not worried that if, God forbid, we have another issue or pandemic, that we would face those same barriers. I will say that there was some politics going on there. I don't believe on the part of the county commissioners, but there was some politics that needed to be removed from the situation. And I think that we have successfully done that.
Mr. Zimmerman?
COVID will still continue. We hope we can just get, as a public health standpoint, that it's certainly along the lines of a bad flu rather than something that truly recurs as a pandemic to the nature that we saw in the prior 2 years. Certainly communities in the Ypsi area have fought the hardest in terms of the results of COVID on their lives, because because every time that we have an issue of this nature, those that are the most marginalized bear the biggest brunt. The folks in our recovery, I'd like to see us not just plain stop with the COVID-19, but also start to work with folks in terms of the comorbidity issues, in terms of their general health, and address the mental health issues that are resultant in being shut down, locked out, and not being able to live their full lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this will be the last question. Mr. Zimmerman, it's on county worker pay. Recently, some Washtenaw County employees went on strike demanding higher wages. A 2020 compensation study for the county found that the county worker pay lagged 7 to 12% behind market wages. What should be done by the Board of Commissioners to address the issue, and how would you pay for it?
It's important that our county workers in all bargaining units believe that they are being dealt with in good faith. It's important, again, I can't ascertain the way that perhaps our Commissioner Sanders can, in terms of, is that a perception with our workforce or not? But if they are not believing that they are being dealt with in good faith, that has to be established, because otherwise there is no trust in any agreement that comes forward. Market studies can be market studies, and the devil is always in the details in terms of what specific jobs are being handled at what particular wages, what particular work rules. And again, it's a subject of negotiation that can be pretty intense at times. No one wants to see themselves being basically a year's behind and losing a year's worth of inflation on their wages, or in some cases, if we're normalizing inflation, that could be up to 3 years worth of pay. There's certainly also areas within Washtenaw that have very different pay structures based on where we are within the county. Certainly an Ann Arbor structure will be far different than, let's say, a Freedom Township structure. We need to be cognizant of where our workers are based, what tasks they're assigned to do, and perhaps judge their pay accordingly, and just get creative in terms of how we get to pay for this, in terms of what we can provide for in the work rules and in the structure of a labor contract. Thank you.
Ms. Sanders?
So I'm not aware of any county employees going on strike recently. I am aware of nurses being on strike, Eastern Michigan University faculty members going on strike. But what I will say is that when you compare our county to like-sized counties, we're not compensating our county employees. We're not compensating our county administrator, our administrators, nor our commissioners appropriately. And so I believe that the compensation should be at least respectfully aligned with the capacity of the county in terms of our resources. And we're not a poor county. That our workers who are showing up every day should receive fair compensation. And so the Board of Commissioners is, as we speak, and has been for the last, I think, 3 years, looking at a salary survey, and we are ready to move forward with putting that in place. And I am hopeful that that will be something that we will be voting on in the coming months. And so I don't think that that's going to be an ongoing issue, but I support labor. I come from labor, and I am privileged to have the ability to sit in multiple seats and be able to see more than just one side of the view. And our county employees are due for an increase, and the commissioners are working on that.
Okay, thank you both very much. And now we're ready for your closing statements, and we'll begin with you, Ms. Sanders.
So I would say that I have lived in this county by choice and raised a child, and now helping to raise a grandchild here in Washtenaw County. It is a rich county to live in. We do have quite a bit that we need to handle in terms of our racial issues. And I think that creating a racial equity office is a great first step, but we do need to be honest about that. And we need to make sure that opportunities are provided for everyone. That includes training, education, housing, access to food, good food. And I believe that this current board and possibly the incoming board will make sure, and we are working to make sure that that happens. And that is my commitment. It is what I committed to in my first campaign, and I am committed to continuing that work. And I look forward to it. I consider myself blessed to have had the opportunity to be able to work alongside and with many of the people that I am currently interacting with. And so I would appreciate the voters giving me an opportunity, 2 more years to continue that work. Thank you for having me, League of Women Voters. I appreciate your invitation and your time.
Thank you. Mr. Zimmerman?
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for supporting this forum. Also a shout out to those who will check us out in preparation to vote. Let's talk about the key areas where I can make a difference. As a CPA, I have the expertise to assess where we get the best value for taxpayer money. Our taxpayers are stretched in these really tough economic times. I know what it takes to work with numbers and the people. From my business experience, I've learned that when a customer is hurting, it will soon hurt us. The board's relationship with county residents is no different. We must holistically govern to protect the working classes who always bear such a disproportionate burden. We must help people keep their hard-earned money and keep good recovery programs. The ultimate objective of our compassion is to have the most vulnerable no longer be our most vulnerable. Let's also work with the public to ensure that they like our services, the appeal of our communities, and will continue to invest here. We also need to work to attract others that bring jobs. Let's never forget a job is the best anti-poverty program ever devised. Our fight against fentanyl and human trafficking must never waver. We've suffered an opioid death every 5 days so far this year, a leading cause of death for our young people. Another thing to pay attention to is to get universal high-speed wireless internet as soon as possible. We must partner with those that lead in technology and innovation. We all have intense pressure to support our families, keep them safe, and provide for our education. My skills and experience will be a great match for what you need. I commit that you will receive my full-time attention and be my leading priority. I look forward to your trust, confidence, and vote. I will work for all of us.
Okay, thank you both for participating, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The League thanks the candidates and volunteers who participated in tonight's forum and community members who submitted questions. Please urge others to view our forums. Most importantly, please vote in the November 8th general elections, either by absentee ballot or in person.